Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited. I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to joining this call, particularly those of you that are calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We appreciate your participation. We like to move quickly through the call. Bottom line, the important information for you. We know you're busy people. You have other things to do. We have a standard format. We spend a few minutes talking about the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar, which we believe is the base currency for the reset of these other currencies. Then we like to spend a few minutes talking about the program that we've put in place to assist you. And then we'd like to go to a brief Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started and talk a little bit about what's going on in Iraq. Not much has changed in the last week in terms of the internal affairs of Iraq, both in terms of politically and in terms of the CBI and what they're doing in terms of currency reforms, but there has been some progress. First, before we get into all of that, and by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We are not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information we think is most relevant. The first relevant issue is a reasonable window for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar in country. Again, things have not changed from last week. Best case scenario, in our opinion, would be the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar in the next 30 to 60 days, with the backstop being January of 2020. We just don't see how the reinstitution could go beyond January 2020. The reason we've chosen that date is that is when the 2020 budget would be passed, and that would be the optimal time for the reinstitution if they do not accomplish it prior to that date. In terms of what's going on in country, we've had the passage of the financial management law, which is a critical law. It's basically targeted at the corrupt actions of many of the government officials in Iraq. Officials can no longer manipulate the currency. They cannot make a profit and skim off of the auctions. So that's good news, and that's been coming for some time. The project for the deletion of the zeros is almost completely implemented. The process began back in 2011. The objective was to reduce the money supply, i.e. the provisional currency, issued after the removal of Saddam Hussein. Now, I don't want to get into a technical economic explanation of money supply M1, M2, and M3. That's really not important. What's important is that the provisional currency has been reduced from approximately 135 trillion dinar in 2011 to today, which is approximately 45 trillion dinar. Now, with the deletion of the zeros, i.e. the removal of the last three zeros, that 45 trillion will become 45 billion. In addition, all 8 regional banks are now in possession of the lower denoms, the 50s and the 100s, and the new coinage. Now, they have not been released to the general public, but for the CBI to go to the expense of the coinage and printing the new counterfeit protections with the new paper currency, it would make no sense to produce and distribute the lower denoms and the coinage to those 8 regional banks unless they were anticipating the imminent reinstitution of the currency. So that's good news as well. Now, last week, the Sadrists, which is the largest coalition in the parliament, was pushing hard for Mahdi to get its last 4 ministerial confirmations through the parliament. And they insisted that they be non-Iranian, not meaning that they couldn't be Shia, but that they couldn't be hardcore Shia that were sympathetic to Iran. Over the last week, the ministers of Defense, Justice, and Interior have been confirmed by the parliament. That frankly caught me by surprise. I didn't think that would happen. The only remaining ministerial seat is, in my opinion, the least important, the Minister of Education. I do not see if at the end of the month, if they do not have a confirmed minister, I do not see there being a no confidence vote for Mahdi simply because he didn't get that one seat filled. However, even if that were to happen, the Sadrists have also made it clear that a body is in the wings and they are ready to bring him in immediately to make the process much more streamlined rather than looking for an entirely new individual that would then, of course, have to be vetted by the parliament. So all of that's moving forward. I know I've gotten a lot of calls about people saying that the reinstitution is going to happen before the end of the month. I've heard this so many times over the last 8 years, I don't even want to recount them. I don't see that happening. Certainly anything is possible, but to me, the 30 to 60-day window, given where we are today, seems the most reasonable. Another issue that was important for the last couple of weeks was the budget. There is a new supplemental budget law that's pending in the Parliament. They're dealing with two issues. The first is a very positive development. Most budgets deal with balancing projected revenues with expenditures. Expenditures this year have exceeded projections. However, the surplus from the sale of petroleum has substantially exceeded projections, and so they're running a surplus, so it should be easy to adjust the budget there. The other issue is a little bit more problematic. That has to do with adjusting for the increased value of the dinar. The first quarter expenditures were paid out at the rate of 1180. They're about to pay the second quarter, and even though it's a little bit more difficult and problematic, it seems to me that they're going to make the adjustments to reflect the increased value of the dinar in country. So the only remaining X factor, in our opinion, would be continued Iranian provocations. Iran, of course, is really suffering economically as the result of the sanctions. The United States really is in a very strong position. We have an economy that annually produces about 20 trillion versus the Iranian economy, which produces roughly 400 billion. That's been cut nearly in half thanks to the sanctions. They have two remaining customers, basically, that are keeping them afloat. Iraq, that purchases their natural gas until their electrical grid is back in place, and the Chinese that continue to purchase their petroleum. Now, the United States is walking a little bit of a fine line. Iraq has contracted with Siemens and GE to rebuild their electrical grid, so that should help alleviate the problem in Iraq. Now, a lot of people have speculated that Iran is going to once again prolong the process of this reinstitution. Yes, that's a possibility, but I actually at this point think that it's going to hasten the reinstitution. I think the calculus for the international community now is that the sooner we get Iraq independent and away from Iran, the better off for Iraq and, frankly, the better off for the Iranian people. So, again, with the reinstitution of their currency imminent and the new contracts for rebuilding the infrastructure and particularly their electric grid, they can be moving away from the Iranian purchase of natural gas. Now, the United States is going to have to walk a fine line with China because we're in the process of negotiating the trade deficit with China, and China is the number one customer of Iranian petroleum. So those are issues that have to be dealt with. But again, I don't see either of these issues postponing any longer the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. So again, in our opinion, we're looking on the positive side, 30 to 60 days for the reinstitution of the dinar. Now, that being the case, we are running out of time to get our affairs in order prior to the revaluation. Obviously, the revaluation of the dinar is very good news for anyone that has Iraqi dinar, whether they've had them for 10 years or 10 months. But there are some things that you need to do to get your affairs in order. Many individuals have no idea what that is. Trusts Unlimited, to that end, has put a program in place to assist you, and I'm going to explain to you what you need to do and why you need to do it prior to the revaluation of these currencies. We have a turnkey program in place. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a pre-RV package of asset protection trusts with the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust product. Post-RV involves all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of these currencies. Unfortunately, my phone keeps beeping because individuals continue to keep calling me. We've done these calls for 8 years now, and some people still don't seem to understand that on Wednesdays I'm on conference calls. So I'll just say it one more time. You have a better chance of surviving a plane crash than getting me on the phone when I'm doing conference calls. I hope these individuals will take notice. So let's get back to business here. Let's talk a little bit about phase one, which is the establishment of your pre-RV package of asset protection trusts and the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust product. There are many entities, legal entities out there that you can establish to provide some modicum of asset protection. First would be things like LLCs and sub-S corporations. They do provide some asset protection, primarily to divide business assets from personal assets. But many court jurisdictions have ruled that if an LLC or a sub-S corporation is owned by, in the majority, by one person or a closely held group, that LLC or sub-S corporation can be pierced for civil litigation. So that makes them inappropriate to protect these currencies. There are individuals that have established revocable trusts. Revocable trusts are designed primarily to exempt your estate from the cost and delay of probate, and in some cases to reduce or eliminate the federal estate tax. But revocable trusts provide no privacy or asset protection, so they are going to be inappropriate to provide the proper asset protection. Then there are single, not package, but single irrevocable trusts. Now, the problem with these trusts is that all of your assets are in one house or one entity. So if any one of those assets ever gets involved in civil litigation, that will necessarily drag all of your net worth or your assets into litigation because they're all owned by the same entity. This is why we've established a package of trusts. And again, I'm going to explain this to you in a little bit more detail. You're going to need to establish a package of irrevocable trusts prior to the revaluation of these currencies, and you're going to need to do so for the following reasons. First, by establishing this package of trusts and assigning your currencies on paper to that trust package, you will have preserved your privacy and your anonymity. That's because with our trust package, your assets and your net worth are sealed, meaning that the general public will have no knowledge of those assets or your net worth. Second, by establishing this trust package, you will be able to successfully avoid personal IRS scrutiny. If you're holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will most likely spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit would be time-consuming, it would be frustrating, and frankly, it would probably cost you substantially more than the cost of our asset protection trust. On the other hand, if your asset protection trust is in place pre-RV and your currencies have been assigned to that trust package, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event of the revaluation from yourself personally to the trust. Now, this is important for two reasons. First, there's less than a 10% chance of an IRS audit of this revaluation occurs within your trust. But second, and most importantly, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they cannot do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because within the package is a special gift subtrust. Now, philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% federal gift tax, you're going to need to gift currencies to family and friends prior to the revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves, or giving them the lump sum in U.S. dollars after you've negotiated the exchange, that can be accomplished outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give these individuals the post-RV lump sum, you can give to them through this special gift subtrust. By gifting through this gift subtrust, their U.S. dollars will be protected along with yours. The language of this gift subtrust allows you to gift up to a certain amount of a currency or currencies, meaning you can gift the exact U.S. dollar amount that you had in mind, irrespective of the exchange rate. But because you're gifting through the trust, you will be able to manage, invest, and distribute the money to these individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this pre-RV asset protection trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you two quick scenarios. Scenario number one, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs in a state of $25 million. Now that estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with a probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years, and in some cases even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government would assess in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 55%. Not only is this unacceptable, it is completely unavoidable. Scenario number two, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate, there will be no public disclosure of your estate, your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. What does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. You transfer the currencies to our trust package. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust is structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once the prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could win by way of a civil award would be $5,000, the value of the property at the time you transferred it out of title to our trust package and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This will protect you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This asset protection is accomplished through a legal strategy called segregation of assets, and this is how it would work. Again, we'll use the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for 25 million. Now that you have 25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust managed by your master trust. This constitutes our package. Now, why is this critical from an asset protection standpoint? Well, let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars, you have an accident, the accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So there'd be no benefit to suing you. The plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is very important from an asset protection standpoint. All of your other assets and net worth are protected in the other subtrusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate subtrusts are separate legal entities or separate legal persons, and the plaintiffs would have no standing to pursue a separate legal uninvolved person. So your package of trusts work very much the way a barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, all of these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your package of trusts prior to the revaluation of these currencies. Now, there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, a holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in Phase 2, all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies, hopefully. I'll just make mention of one here today. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the management and funding of your trust packages post-RV. Many of our clients have expressed desires to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. And the proper way to fund those entities is by the direct transfer of funds from your asset protection trust to those newly formed entities. We'll also have our tax specialists there as well. Our offshore specialists will show you that by establishing offshore title of certain assets, you can substantially reduce and in some cases eliminate future taxes on the reinvestment of the net proceeds from the revaluation itself. We'll also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to want to reposition assets for a number of reasons after the revaluation. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provisions, the failure of banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the general taxing authority of the respective governments, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds at those banks. So you're going to want to get money out of the banks and work at other markets as quickly as possible. And third, the general global shift from fiat-based to commodity-backed currencies in and of themselves is going to create extremely volatile financial markets, and you're going to want to move money out of financial markets and into tangible assets as well. Now, our trust product is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV, and then your financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV. One optional gift subtrust to hold the financial assets of those that you wish to gift pre-RV, which subtrust can be converted to a standard subtrust at any time, and 8 additional conventional subtrusts to hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But some years back when we decided to work with denarians, we knew that that price tag would basically be out of reach for too many. So we restructured and back-end loaded the product, and by doing so, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. Now, there are several ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If that's not possible, we do have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver your trust. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. With this approach, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for getting their affairs in order and their trust in place prior to the revaluation should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your credit card would be substantially less than the $100 you'd pay us on our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. The only additional cost for the lifetime of this trust would be future paralegal fees if you wish to make legal changes to the trust or you wish to fund the subtrust. So, for example, if you purchased a $5 million home on the beach and you wanted to place it in one of the subtrusts to protect it, that would only involve a paralegal fee of between $100 and $150. It's such a nominal fee, it's not even worth discussing. Now, we are going to go to a Q&A in just a moment, but before we do, and for the benefit of our newer callers, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you may want to seriously consider allowing us to assist you. Our trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 38 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in these areas, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, Bob and I have been working together for a decade in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning, and it has been disheartening to see people from time to time walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so, they have somehow lost control of their assets and their affairs. In point of fact, it's just the reverse. Under our system of civil procedure, it's when you own assets in direct title that you can lose control of them. And invariably, it's at precisely those times in life that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives both pre- and post-RV, as we understand them. Again, thanks for taking the time to listen to the call. I'm going to open the Q&A in just a moment. If the things we have said are of interest to you, please contact us and get our initial package. I'll be providing our contact information. You're under no obligation whatsoever by receiving this package, although it does include everything you need if you wish to proceed. You can review the package, contact us by phone or email if you have any questions. We'll be happy to answer those questions and assist you in every way, and there will be no consultation fee. I'm about to open the Q&A. When I do, 2 quick rules. We take no service calls on the Q&A, and by the way, I've received a number of calls this morning, including while I was on this call, which frankly rather irritating, but I will be returning those calls right after I get off of this conference call. Second rule, obviously, in order to participate in the Q&A, your name and number must be on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and open the Q&A now. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I want to give you our contact information. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD Calls and go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed for this live call this afternoon, with the exception of the last digit. Rather than dialing 4, you'll dial a 3 and then use the same access code, which is 739-394-pound. If you'd like to be included on our email list, you go to our website, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be on our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we only send emails out periodically, pre-RV, but after the reinstitution and revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies, emails will certainly go out weekly and possibly even daily. So I'm going to go to the Q&A here. Our first caller is area code 916. That's 916. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim. It's Christopher.
Yes, sir.
I'm just curious, do you still feel that we're going to have a short time period after the lower denoms are released? What do you feel, 1-2 weeks?
Okay. The release of the lower denoms to the general public from the 8 regional banks will happen just prior to the reinstitution, simultaneous to the reinstitution, or just after. And I'm talking within 10 days,
okay,
in my opinion. So I can't tell you the exact order it's going to happen, but it's going to be, as I said, just before or just after or at this precise moment. They may announce the lower denoms are out and the 3 zeros are gone. So that's what I see.
Okay, so we'll have that short little warning before the RV. Okay.
Now, the RV, the RI in country is not the same thing as the RV. So let's say that the CBI announces the release of the lower denoms and the deletion of the zeros simultaneously. That doesn't mean it is revalued. The IMF would then go global on the Forex. Now, that could theoretically take 30 days, although I don't think it would take that long. To me, it would seem like more like 10 to 14 days, but we'll just have to see. This is a much larger transaction financially and globally than, say, the Kuwaiti situation was. But it's not going to RI without the blessing of the IMF, which means that the IMF's already going to put it on the Forex, so it shouldn't be there too long afterward.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, our next caller is, surprise, surprise, that's 312, that's got to be left.
Yes, it is, and I'm doing the Tootsie Roll.
I don't know what you're doing, but there's all kinds of noise in the background. Where are you?
I just turned it down. That's the radio. That's the
okay.
Right. Called Tootsie Roll, 1994.
Okay.
But anyway. Anyway. Yeah, I'm multitasking, driving and listening to music and listening to you. So you were caught off guard from the 3 seats being seated, and all except that one, because the articles were out on Friday. Did you see the articles on Friday or Saturday?
Yeah. No, what I'm saying is, I was off guarded by the fact that it happened over this week, because last week when the 4 had not been done, I just did not see them getting through. That's all. That's the only point I was making. That was progress over the week that I did not expect. But I mean, it's good news. I just didn't expect it.
Okay. So
the reason
I'm going from there.
The reason I didn't expect it was because the SADRS made it clear that they were ready to push a body into that slot. So my feeling was the writing was already on the wall. They were not going to approve these guys. So it's good news. I mean, I'm glad it happened. I just didn't anticipate it.
Yeah. There's going to probably be something else you're going to be glad that happened. But if we were to go to a no confidence vote and they move a body in, what would it take to get a no confidence vote from the current PM or the current? They
need a majority of the parliament to do it, and SADRS have the votes. That was my point. That when they announced they had a body ready to go, what they were saying was, we don't think this guy's going to deliver with non-Iranian sympathizers, in the ministerial seat. So I don't know what I guess Mahdi, read the tea leaves and said, okay, I got to play ball and I got to put some people in there that are genuinely non-sectarian. So, hopefully, and of the 4, the education is the least important.
Yes.
So
I was saying the same thing. It's not going to stop anything. The education part.
Yeah. So I don't see that stopping anything. I don't see a reval this month, but it's a distinct possibility for July.
So you could be surprised again over the weekend, maybe.
Well, I'm happy to be wrong. I'm ready to move on.
I'm ready for you to be wrong.
Well, I'm not going to say any more on that. I'm pretty happy with my predictions over the last few years. But you never know. We're in uncharted waters with this one, because not only is the situation in Iraq from a geopolitical, from a financial, from just about any angle critical, but we're looking at Basel III, Basel IV, and Basel V compliance happening almost simultaneously. So there's a heck of a lot going on. The next couple of years are going to be real interesting. I just want this revaluation done. I want us to go to the banks. I want to get that money in those trusts and in our control, so no matter what else happens, our wealth for ourselves, our children, and our grandchildren is protected.
I agree. Well, I want you to be right on that one.
Yes, sir.
The one other thing, for a no confidence vote, how would that move the RV? Because I have been told and heard that we don't need to wait for it to actually happen over there before it happens over here, because we can exchange and then they can hold it. But it looks like Iraq is pushing to get things done before June expires.
I've never seen, I mean, if you go back 100 years to the revaluations twice of the German Deutschmark, to the revaluation of the Mexican peso, the ruble. If you go back and look at all of that, it never went global before it RI'd in country. So, if it happens, it would be the first time. So I'm just going to stay on Main Street with this one, and I think they're going to, connect the dots. They're going to complete the government. They're going to complete the deletion of the zeros. They're going to reinstitute the currency. They've got the non-counterfeit mechanisms in place on the paper and the coinage. The IMF's going to come through. They're going to give us a rate. And all of that, in my opinion, I see no reason why that can't happen in the next 30 to 60 days.
Cool in the game. Thanks again, Jim. Thanks for taking my call, and say hi to the professor.
Will do. Thanks a lot. Take care.
All right. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, Les was our last caller for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to the call. I hope that those of you calling in for the first time, if the things that we've discussed here are of interest, you will contact us to get our initial package. Again, you're under absolutely no obligation whatsoever by receiving the package, even though it includes everything you need if you should decide to establish a trust. You can review the information. There's a lot of information about us, about trusts, about the revaluation in these currencies. You can contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. There will be no consultation fee. If you should decide to proceed, once we receive your fee and your trust application, you should have your trust within 5 working days. Our next call is scheduled, of course, for next week. Should something of a dramatic nature happen between now and then, we'll try to get an emergency email out and schedule an emergency conference call. Failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. So have a great week, everyone. Look forward to speaking with you again. Bye-bye.